investing in the future, NFTs and the Metaverse investments. So, please put your hands together if you can find your hands. It seems to have been missing this afternoon. But Mr. Dirk van Loggerenberg, CEO of FutureFin, is your moderator. There we go. He's also joined by Llew, Claasen, Managing Partner at Newtown Partners.
Where should I sit?
Gideon, Greaves, Managing Director for Africa at CVVC. He's the only guy on the panel that can show his legs off. Then Devon, Krantz, CEO and co-founder of Linum Labs. And finally, the man who's been in the news because he's been raising more money than money available in the world, Ahren Posthumus, co-founder at Momint.
Awesome stuff. Okay, thanks guys. I think just as an intro, I'm going to allow the panel to introduce themselves and just tell us a little bit about what they are building and what they're busy with. So Llew, if you can start.
So what are we building? So I think that we've got different theses for different pools of capital. In general, we believe sort of the end state is high decentralization, distributed networks, embedded economic incentives at the edge of the network. So all of the stuff that we've been talking about for years and years, but we're not there yet. I think that I was saying earlier on, many of the challenges that we've had 2014, 2017, they still exist in terms of things like transactions per second throughput and governance. So I think that there are still important challenges that need to be solved at the protocol level, and we continue to look at opportunities there.
Cool. Gideon?
Yeah, so CVVC, we're a Swiss-based venture capital firm. I run the African operations. Our model is really venture capital with a plus, so we invest in startups that utilize blockchain. We've got 51 companies in our portfolio, 12 from Africa now. The plus is really that we focus a lot on ecosystem building. And what does that mean, right? In an emerging market with an emerging technology, that becomes super important. Linking everyone together, all the key players, the key actors, from government to academia, the likes of Polygon, startups and corporates, investors, etc., and really creating an ecosystem that can allow for adoption to just be a bit faster than it is now.
Great. Devon?
Hi everyone. So yeah, I'm CEO and co-founder of Linum Labs. Linum Labs is a blockchain software production studio, and we've actually been around since 2016. So this is unfortunately not the first crypto winter that we've been a part of. What our company does is we develop software for our clients across the globe, ranging in kind of whatever's trending at the moment. So we've built a bunch of NFT marketplaces, DAOs, DeFi tools, and we've had the absolute pleasure of working across a ridiculous variety of industries as well, actually. So it's not quite so siloed to just one thing. We've worked with luxury goods marketplaces with names like Vogue and Dolce & Gabbana, which is very exciting. And then also as far as, I guess, Major League Baseball stars, working with governments. We worked with the Swiss National Railway. So the work that we do is really quite varied and
very diverse.
Exciting. Yeah.
Thank you. Ahren?
Cool. I hate doing self-introductions because it always feels like you're blowing your own trumpet.
The elevator pitch.
Yeah, so Momint is a stock market for alternative investments. So we're making alternative investments accessible to everyone. So think of all the alternative asset classes that have outperformed the S&P 500 over the last decade. Property, whiskey, wine, watches. These are alternative asset classes that we're making available for people to invest in. We're doing some really exciting stuff in property and solar. So we the people, could replace Eskom and earn the revenue. But anyways, we can get into that later. Yeah, that's what we are. Cool.
Awesome. So Ahren, maybe if you can tell us a little bit about what is the difference between crypto and NFT?
I love the first question because what I always try to emphasize with people is that crypto and NFT are not necessarily intrinsically attached at the hip, right? You can, an NFT, the easiest way to think of it is it's a certificate of ownership, right? It's a digital certificate of ownership, but it's a certificate of ownership. And you can transact that certificate through fiat or through any mechanism, through barter, The key thing is that it represents a legal agreement for ownership of an asset, and that's different to crypto. Crypto is all about financial infrastructure and replacing fiat money, and NFTs are about replacing asset ledgers. You know, so yeah.
So am I right in saying that a NFT, a non-fungible token, is very specific to an asset, and crypto is more a fungible token, which means that...
Correct, and just quickly, for the people who maybe don't know fungible and non-fungible, fungible just means that it's like a 10 Rand note. If I swap my 10 Rand with your 10 Rand, you'd go, whatever, they're both worth 10 Rand.
Yeah, exactly.
But if I had a Mona Lisa and you had a fake or a print copy of the Mona Lisa, I would not swap that with you, sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's talk about the metaverse. I mean, the metaverse, is that really something? I mean, Devon, if you think about Facebook, they changed their name to Meta. Surely they had a big vision for this. Is it working out? Is it something that...
I think the topic of the metaverse is really interesting, and I've actually been speaking on it quite a bit lately, but it's quite a vague concept, so I'm never really sure quite where to start. When Facebook changed its name to Meta, they actually lost more than half of their market capital from then to now. And they're actually losing about $10 billion a year on metaverse-related developments. This actually brings up together another question, and maybe I can actually pass it to one of you two to see kind of your points on it. So my opinion when I'm asked about the metaverse is how do you kind of see it coming up? And a lot of the time I think that the metaverse is not going to be what we kind of imagine the internet is now, but actually more of a corporate type type of metaverse, where it's owned by maybe the Microsofts, the Googles, the YouTubes, the Facebooks. And then they all
Walmart also getting into that space.
Exactly.
Walmart is a
But then we're kind of taking away again from the power of the people and putting it back into the corporates. So it's kind of going away from decentralization again, back into maybe more a centralized metaverse.
Exactly.
So I'd like to know kind of your guys' thoughts.
Yeah, well, I guess from the metaverse and the involvement of crypto and blockchain in the metaverse can also be separate, right? You can have a metaverse in the way that Walmart might use it, where they want to create an experience for their shoppers. The metaverse, from my perspective, is like the 3D version of the internet. So it's a trend that we can't stay away from. And you'll see it being used in traditional aspects like that. Walmart, I can imagine that's what they're doing. I didn't know. But we saw a massive acquisition this year from Microsoft. They acquired, it was, I think, the biggest private tech acquisition. They acquired Activision Blizzard for $75 billion. And that's going to end up being the building blocks of probably building, their metaverse. But then, in a crypto conference, we've got to talk about the metaverse, the decentralized versus the decentralized metaverse, because there's no argument that from an investment perspective, it's where everyone is looking. There's a great statistic from the SEC where the first 6 months of this year, the word metaverse was mentioned 1,600 times in SEC filings. The year before, it was only mentioned 210 times. And 20 years before that, it was mentioned a couple of dozen. So you can see that it's a big hype. It's almost like the new Bitcoin from a hype perspective. It's about picking the winners and seeing where there's sustainable traction to get involved. But I would like to pose the next question as well is, centralized versus decentralized metaverses. If anyone wants to take that
I add a comment to that as well. I think that I hate that term so much because it's been so overused.
Bludgeon.
And the reality is, it's not news. It's just another word to describe what has been happening for the last 10, 20 years, which is increased digitization of communities. And you're right. The most important difference about the different approaches being taken is it's about, is it decentralized, is it centralized, and the role that blockchain has the potential to play in creating a decentralized metaverse as opposed to something that, a Facebook or somebody like that would control.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But do you think it's hype? I mean, surely it's just hype that we're talking about?
Metaverse?
I mean, have you seen the movie Ready Player One, Gideon?
Love it. Great.
So,
long way to go to get there.
Is that going to happen?
But I think that you can describe those things without ever using that term, and it doesn't change the meaning of it. It's just, I think that we're talking about things that are quite far into the future as if they're going to happen next week. And I think that if we're patient about it and we're like, do we believe that eventually everything becomes digital and we have increasingly rich online or digital experiences? Absolutely. And will they be highly social? Absolutely. And as long as that's sort of the guiding light, what happens between here and then, whether it takes 10 years or 50 years, I think it's irrelevant. We're going there for sure.
Yeah. So let's move to NFTs. So more the investment case for NFTs. And Ahren, if I can ask you, so Beeple sold that very famous painting for $69 million.
5,000 days, yeah.
Was it you paid for an Ethereum? I think so.
So, yeah, maybe let's not go into the background of what it was even bought with, because there was like a 2-week delay before the transfer. There was a buying pool, which he was a part of.
All right,
So I think if we're talking about the investment case for NFTs, we have to look at it again as an asset ledger rather than this being art. And I think the big mistake that a lot of people have in their minds right now is that they see an NFT as artwork. Now, NFTs rapidly revolutionized the art world, particularly because you could put royalties in the smart contract.
Yeah.
And that just illustrated the power of a smart contract. And again, I like to compare a smart contract to a smartphone. Like we had dumb phones, now we've got smartphones.
Yeah.
We had dumb contracts, we're going to have smart contracts, right? And they will, guaranteed, they will replace title deeds to sit on the blockchain. They will replace asset ledgers. They will replace, if you're buying gold, right, like people who invest in gold, you get a promissory note to say that you own this gold. There's more gold in trade right now than there exists on the planet.
Yeah.
Because there's no verifiable way to verify that supply. When you put everything on chain, that changes drastically. And I think that's the key component here. It's more secure and it's more transparent.
Yeah.
So naturally, we would progress to that. I mean, we're launching here today. Princess Charlene of Monaco is launching an NFT project that gives you a membership access. They fly you out to Monaco once a year, every year. It's like that kind of access you can't get without something like that.
That exclusive membership type environment. But do you think it's created a bubble in the art world? You know, with things like Gary Vee selling $50 million worth of doodles on NFT, and
Gary, again, you see at least attached utility to the token, right? Like you can go to VCon and you can get a 5-minute FaceTime with him. And this is what we've seen. I hope the rest of the panel can concur, but what we've seen very rapidly is a shift away from the hype towards utility. Yeah. And I think right now what's happening and what we're driving forward in our marketplace as well is accessibility of opportunity. So we're going to release products where people can invest into property, a real, not metaverse property, a real property at the fraction of a price that you could if you were going to go buy it yourself.
Micro-ownership.
Exactly, exactly. Fractionalization. There's huge opportunity there particularly for Africa, to have wealth generation mechanisms, you know, that weren't accessible before.
Brilliant.
Mobile money is going to be integral to that. Again, why crypto is maybe not as important when we're talking about NFTs. You can buy it with mobile money. Why not?
Exactly.
You know? Yeah.
Devon, do you see any future developments in the NFT space that's exciting you at the moment?
Yeah, so we're actually quite well positioned at Linum to get a lot of positive signals about what upcoming trends might be moving forward. So what our clients come to and ask us about is generally like for us a positive signal about what we think is going to start becoming quite big. And some of the trends that we've noticed picking up over the last half year actually is definitely trending towards real estate. So that is definitely one that's coming up quite strong, and also play to earn in gaming. So we're seeing quite a stronger interest now as well, and people kind of developing towards that. So those are kind of the two main use cases that I'm also quite excited about. But personally as well, the opportunity that NFTs and fractionalization of NFTs provides towards democratizing access to things like IP ownership and advancing the fields of like healthcare and science is also incredible.
Like medical records and, you know, just keeping all of your data in one place. And it's
so that as well, but also the development of new, let's say, compounds for cures, or like, let's say we found a new potential cure for a rare disease, allowing the people that actually have or maybe are affected by a specific area to all fund together and own the IP and the research and the development of a specific
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Is that safe?
Is pharmaceuticals currently safe? I'm not sure. But it would still be a long process, and it would still go through all the rigorous testing. It would just be, the IP wouldn't be owned by the Johnson & Johnsons, the Novartises of the world. It would be owned by kind of the people that are interested in getting it developed, and they would still go through like the scientific regulations and testing procedures.
Yeah, absolutely. And Gideon, you guys also, when you've got 51 investments and you're looking into this space, And you told me a story about Nigeria, maybe as an example of the NFT space and opportunities in Africa.
Yeah, I mean, as Devon and Ahren touched on, I think everyone's moving to the utility. I think in any emerging technology, the hype eventually starts dying down, and people looking at real strong use cases. You know, where you had Jack Dorsey's tweet and a rock and a poop emoji selling for ridiculous amounts. You know, we're moving over
$2.9 million.
Exactly. So to go on to what you mentioned, we invested in a startup, which is a great example of a strong use case that uses NFTs. We invested in a company in Nigeria called House Africa, and they're effectively verifying property on the blockchain, like you mentioned. And they're doing exceptionally well. They now have 2 provinces that they're working with the government in Nigeria. And it's a massive problem in that part of the world. In fact, the founder's got a really great story of when he paid deposit for a house that he lost completely because the person selling it, it wasn't their property. So they're creating an NFT as the certificate that backs who owns the property. But there's so many strong use cases around the space now. I mean, another great example was a startup I met recently in Kenya that's verifying certificates on the blockchain in many different forms. And one of them would be for university certificates. As we know in Africa, a lot of politicians tell us they have an MBA and they don't. And now that can be verified using blockchain. And another great example, what they're trying to solve, and they're trying to get government input. But when I flew to Kenya, I had to show them my yellow fever certificate or vaccination certificate. And it's a little card, right? And I went to Brazil a couple of years ago, and I had to get my vaccination. I obviously lost the card, so I had to get it again to go to Kenya. But if that became digitized and verified, then that would solve that problem, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think that one of the major problems with NFTs at the moment is, you ask about what's the investment case for it, and how do we think about it. So at its core, what is it really? It's a digital right which may or may not have a future revenue associated with it. And if you think about it that way, then the main problem is not that there aren't interesting use cases. It's about who's going to accept it and who's going to verify and attest to it. And I think that, are you going to do it? What we're seeing is that it's really hard to do those in decentralized ways and to create those network effects in order to have people on both sides of the network that are not only issuing but also verifying. And so I do think that some of the initial use cases are not decentralized. They're kind of like, let's use the technology, we control it. You know, nobody else can set rights to it. There's no governance forum or anything like that. It's really just you can access the information and verify that certain things have happened, and that's kind of how we're thinking about those opportunities.
And Llew, do you think that we'll ever see a world where our legal system will go on to decentralized, where contracts and property transfers and...
So I think very basic agreements will definitely digitize. But if I think about the disputes that we've had in the past, they don't have to do with were we unclear in the agreement about stating certain things. They were more about things happened that we did not deal with and could not possibly have foreseen in the agreement, and there's no smart contract that's going to be able to deal with that. So you're still going to get to a point where somebody at some point in time is going to have to make a call, and you're going to have, whether that's a judge, whether that is somebody in arbitration, you're never going to get rid of that. No. But of course we'd love it if you could get to maybe, I don't know, 60% of all contracts being fully digitized. That would be super cool.
Yeah. Ahren,
I want to hop on that and say
go for it.
I totally agree that the legal kind of infrastructure that we've got is not going anywhere, right? And the real power of putting these contracts, like replacing the title deed with a blockchain system, the power of that is that you can transact in 30 seconds rather than 3 to 6 months, right? And there's no chance of the building burning down and then the title deed's gone. My co-founder Adam went there the other day to get, he wanted to see his title deed. He had to book off an entire day, wait in line, and pay 100 Rand to see his own certificate for a house that he owns. Like that almost blows my mind. Ridiculous. You know, the story about reselling a house, that was actually a common scam in Kimberley, where I'm from. There was this one guy in particular who used to sell a house to like 5 people and then disappear. And He didn't even own the house.
No, in Nigeria,
Yeah.
the founder of House Africa was telling me that when you're driving through the neighborhood, every single house you drive past has got a for sale sign.
For sale, yeah.
And then the owner will come out in the morning and take it out. The next morning he'll come back out and there'll be another for sale sign stuck there.
Crazy. And they talk about crypto
Absolutely
scams. Eh?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Ahren, where do you see the upside in this space? I mean, where do you see the major growth
Yeah.
in the near term, very short term?
Yeah, so definitely I think the major upsides from my personal perspective and from the research that we've done, I mean, MIT released a study that said that I think it's roughly 80% of all property will be on the blockchain in the next 15 years. And I have to say I do agree because I see the efficiencies, I see what's possible there. And we're releasing a product very soon that allows people to fractionally invest in ownership of property.
I think it's a great market for that.
And they earn the rental that,
Really?
that the property makes,
Yeah, I
right?
love
So
that.
you've got an income generating asset. And the upside there, very importantly, the reason why this is even possible is because you cut out so many middlemen that you actually can pass on revenues to the token holders that are meaningful, right?
Yeah.
This isn't possible in a world where you have offices and staff and lights to keep on and all of those expenses that like dwindle the pocket of revenue that can go towards the investors.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's phenomenal. I think it's a fantastic space to be in. And Devon, you're doing training as well. I mean, you training
Yeah.
people in the space. And what I loved was, you know, the verification of qualifications, etc. But there must be a massive opportunity for young people to get into the space,
I
to learn
definitely
the
think so.
skills, to program on the blockchain.
Yeah, I think there's definitely like a huge opportunity here for people to get involved in the space. I don't think NFTs or the metaverse are going anywhere anytime soon, and it's definitely something that's going to keep growing. I think Bloomberg actually estimated the metaverse space as a whole to reach $800 million by 2024, and that's really soon. That's in 2 years. So there's so much potential for growth that's currently happening around us already, and we're seeing it a lot already with NFT projects like Bored Apes even moving into, I wouldn't call it a metaverse yet, but virtual worlds. So like the development of virtual worlds, like the other side, like I think Sandbox is another one that's built their own virtual world. So there's all these virtual worlds, and then maybe the next step will be the interconnection and interconnectivity of all of these worlds. And then adding in extra things like your NFTs and your wearables, and then, so I mean, like that's a lot
It's
longer down the
wonderful.
line, but
Wonderful opportunities. Gideon, what excites you at the moment? I mean, what are you excited about in the NFT and the metaverse space right now?
Yeah, I think, well, you know, from my perspective, not the wider company, we're focusing exclusively on Africa. So the use cases can be a little bit different here.
Sure.
You know, it's almost like going back to basics. When we first heard about blockchain, what is really interesting about it, and you always hear about the classic phrases like traceability, transparency, trust. I think there's massive opportunities to use the technology and NFTs to combat a lot of the challenges that we have in the African continent.
Yeah.
I always say that the developed markets are focusing a lot on the speculative assets in the crypto economy, like investing in a gaming startup with a really cool roadmap and pitch deck and website, where Africa is actually teaching the rest of the world about the true use cases of this technology.
Absolutely.
Well said.
And to combat fraud would be amazing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I mentioned this yesterday, but I think it's really relevant. I mean, we always see a lot of problems with regards to tenders going out, and we all know the term tenderpreneurship.
Yeah.
I mean, if you started to put those transactions on chain, you
Great
could trace
idea.
all of that. I mean, we saw
Absolutely.
250 billion rand go missing from Tembisa Hospital recently. Imagine if that was put into the development of, blockchain developers in Africa, right?
Yeah.
So I think for Africa, there's a massive opportunity that this technology can solve for any emerging market, and Africa in particular.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Africa's the most rapid adopter of crypto in the world right now, I
Yeah.
believe, with
Yeah,
the
correct.
leaders. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's a great investment space. Llew, as a closing comment, what do you think of investing in Africa into the space? We've spoken about the protocols. I understand your view. As a closing comment.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'm not going to give you the most appropriate closing comment because I do think it's super hard to invest into crypto opportunities that are in Africa. I think, because it's always going to be what are you comparing it against? And if you're comparing against some of the opportunities and the liquidity and the the sophistication of those opportunities and those ecosystems, whether it's the US, Asia, Europe, it's sometimes hard to go, well, you know, let's look at doing something like inter-country remittances or something like that, where the business case is not as strong.
Yeah.
So, but if I had to sort of do a more general comment and say, what do I think? You know, it never ceases to amaze me that every time we have an upcycle in crypto, something new comes up that kind of changes the way that we think about the technology.
Yeah.
And, you know, at first it was very much, we're going to change the financial system with Bitcoin. Then it became, what the hell are these shit coins and what are we going to do with them? But hey, they're worth something. Then it was like, NFTs, what the hell is this? And I know I'm so confident that the next upcycle will bring new use cases, new applications of the technology that we have not thought about yet. So I think it's about keeping your eyes open and about going, what are the fundamentals of the technology that enable it to do things better than what we have today?
Absolutely. And just as a closing comment, I see it as the early internet days. I mean, there's the cleverest minds in the world are working on solutions in this space. And I'm very excited about it, especially for Africa, because I really believe that the utility of NFTs and also the metaverse in future will have a great application to Africa. So I'm excited about this space. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for your time. Thanks to the panel.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Wonderful panel. Thank you.